This video is not sponsored by Rady Shady Lady. So, bet you're wondering how I got into this situation. Well, I was in the bunker, as you do, when I ran out of custard creams. Naturally, I didn't want to eat another roll of toilet paper for dinner, so I ventured out into the post-virus waste in search of nutrition. I found this tin of Heinz spotted dick, and as I was walking back to base, I fell down this bank, and well, here I am. I could just climb out and head home, but if you think I'm leaving my spotted dick behind, then you've got another thing coming. While you're here though, I might as well tell you about this idea I had for a new series on my channel. Absolute bangers! Taking a look back at some proper British telly. Absolute bangers! All this CGI crap the kids are watching these days. We're here for the real stop motion heroes. Absolute bangers! We got a postman, a sentient car, a builder, one-eyed mice. This thing, to me to you. Absolute bangers! Coming to a YouTube channel near you. I think I might have gone a little overboard with the title, but you get the idea. And I think right now, while my life is in perilous danger, is the perfect time to discuss the subject of this video. I know what some of you are thinking. Twice Broken Leg, aka Will, this show was made in 1965 and has an American voice cast. Why the hell is it on a list of British TV shows from your childhood? Well, to answer that, we need to go back in time, to a time where nobody really knew what TV genres were, and you could put pretty much anything on television as long as it wasn't anti-Christian. Gerry Anderson was a British filmmaker stuck making puppet shows for kids, and with such thrilling titles as The Adventures of Twizzle and Torchy the Battery Box, it was no wonder he wanted to move on to film live-action movies and cheat on his wife. Wait, for real? Oh, bloody hell. He had an affair with his secretary while making The Adventures of Twizzle, divorced his wife, and married his secretary about 2 years later. What an interesting guy. Anyway, Gerry Anderson wanted to make something more, something bigger or live action. Him, his wife and a few mates got together in 1959 and made their own company that produced puppet TV shows. This led Anderson to get the chance to direct a live action film, Crossroads to Crime, but the film flopped, meaning Anderson had to go back and play with his puppets some more. In 1960, the studio produced a show called Supercar that was one of their first big successes. The show was the first to officially use what Anderson called super marionation, a technique the studio had invented where the pre-recorded character's dialogue would be played on set so a puppeteer could move the puppet's mouth in sync with the dialogue. Basically fancy puppets. After a few more hits, the company was bought out and productions moved to Slough, where they had a bigger studio, a bigger budget, and had access to a big water tank. There they created Stingray, which was not only filmed in colour, but had significantly improved puppets, with the puppeteers able to swap out the heads to help convey different expressions. Then in 1964, production started on a new show. You see, Gerry had previously served in the RAF and still had strong memories of when a Spitfire almost landed without deploying its landing gear. On top of that, his brother had been deployed to an American Air Force base during the Second World War called Thunderbird Field and had written letters back to England telling Gerry all about his exploits. He had these memories and wanted to tell some sort of story with them but couldn't figure out how to tell them. That was until a mining accident in West Germany in 1963, when 11 miners were trapped in a collapsed mine for about 14 days. It sounds random, I know, but the idea of a rescue organisation coming in to save the day popped into his head. He then came up with the idea of a show following an international rescue team, and oh boy, it was gonna be big. Enter stage left, the Thunderbirds. Compared to small films, Thunderbirds had a massive budget, and by Jove, they were gonna use it. Everything from the large voice cast to the set design, right down to the dirty details was high budget. The studio's producer was that excited by the show when he first saw test cuts of the pilot, he stretched the runtime from 25 to 50 minutes, gave Anderson a bigger budget, and even proposed a full feature film. I'll touch on the film later. Soon, the big day came, and on the 30th of September 1965, Britain was introduced to the International Rescue family, and boy did we love it. The show is somewhat slow-paced in comparison to modern television, but that didn't take away from the sheer spectacle of it. The action, the music, the production design, everything could only be described as brilliant. Being set in America in the future by writers that had not been to either, Anderson put whatever crazy sci-fi bollocks he wanted into the show, and boy, are there some crazy machines. But they were always presented in a way that made them impressive, with over-the-top music and slow panning camera shots, so they never felt weird or outlandish while you're watching the episode. The main drive for each episode is that some marvel of engineering would be completed, something will go wrong, and it's up to the International Rescue Team to come and save the day. Sounds standard for a kids' TV show. Hell, we've even got dogs doing that now. But what makes Thunderbirds special is many small elements coming together that I can't really explain in one go, so I'll break it down into segments. Characters, settings, the machines, and the action. But first, a message from our non-existent sponsor, Raiders of the Shadow Legends.
Fuck you, Baltimore! If you're dumb enough to download a new app today, you're a big enough schmutt to play Raid Shadow Legends. Boring gameplay, pay to win, pop-ups. If you think you're gonna have fun playing Raid, you can kiss my ass. It's their belief that you're such a stupid motherfucker, you'll fall for this bullshit. Guaranteed! If you find a better game, shove it up your ugly ass. You heard us right, shove it up your ugly ass. Bring your phone, bring your PC, bring your wallet. We'll fuck it. That's right, we'll fuck your wallet. Because at Raid Shadow Legends, everything is behind a paywall. Take a hike to Raid Shadow Legends, home of fast-forward combat. How does it work? Our gameplay is so slow and repetitive that if you get bored, you can fast-forward it. Don't wait, don't delay, download now, so we can scam only with Raid, the mobile RPG designed to rip you off. Hurry up, asshole! We paid YouTubers upwards of $2,000 each to sell our game, so you better play now and buy our in-game currency. Raid Shadow Legends, Play Store's laggiest and biggest cash grab scam on the internet right now. Guaranteed!
International Rescue, Lady Penelope speaking.
The show's cast boils down to Jeff Tracy running the International Rescue operation on his private island, along with his 5 sons, Virgil, Alan, Scott, John, Paul, George, Ringo and Gordon, who dispatch and operate the Thunderbird rescue vehicles. Alongside them is Brains, the head designer and engineer, Lady Penelope and her butler Parker, who act as the secret agents based in London, Grandma, who only ever really appears for comedic purposes, and Tintin and her father, who just kind of live on Tracy Island and help out with stuff off screen, I guess. Pretty much all the characters are likeable and they're all written well. Not too deep or detailed, but enough for their interactions with each other to feel believable. You'd think that having the characters be played by puppets would make them feel blank and emotionless, but their expressions are designed so well that just tilting the head and moving the eyes slightly can change a character's expression from coy to suspicious. They give you the full range of emotions about as well as most actors. It's quite incredible. Most stories are told from the perspectives of everyone in the team rather than one character in particular. This helps establish the team dynamic present in every episode and makes the viewers care more about all the characters as opposed to just a few. It also allows stories to be focused on smaller portions of the cast without decreasing the worth of the other characters. The show is set in the distant year of 2065, if we're lucky enough to even see that year. The world has advanced significantly, and it all has this very 1950s, 60s American attitude of the nuclear future, hailing the mighty atom with most machines being powered by some sort of reactor. The colours are vibrant and bright, most tables and chairs are rounded and smooth, and anything that's supposed to be technical is bulky. You know, real 60s sci-fi. The outside world is very concrete but packed with detail such as wear and tear on the roads, dirt in the corners of the windows, signs and posters scattered around, and even vehicles moving in the backgrounds on wide shots. From a modern perspective, it's a very unique and retro aesthetic and a pretty cool thing to look back at and consider this is what some believe the future would look like. It's also reflected in the characters' clothing as well as casual behaviours. Jeff Tracy, Lady Penelope, and even some of the Tracy boys can often be seen with a cigarette in hand. It's just small attentions to detail such as this that go a long way in making the puppet characters more believable. And because Anderson always wanted to film live action shows, he filmed the puppets like he would a real actor, helping give depth to the world. Look at any frame and you can tell they're just puppets, but in motion, it's enough to really hold your suspension of disbelief and really pull you into the world of the story. Perhaps the main selling point of the show, the Thunderbird vehicles themselves could be considered their own characters, each with a unique design and purpose. Thunderbird 1 is the scout. When there's an emergency, Thunderbird 1 is the first to arrive and assess what would be needed to complete the rescue. Thunderbird 2 is the transport vehicle. Pretty much the most well-known of the five, Thunderbird 2 carries an interchangeable pod that contains the necessary vehicles and equipment needed to perform a rescue. Thunderbird 3 is just a rocket. It only appears in a few episodes and is the only other Thunderbird that can go into space. Its main use is to transport John and Alan to and from Thunderbird 5. Thunderbird 4 is a submarine. It's used on underwater rescues. I feel that's pretty obvious. And Thunderbird 5 is a space station, used to track distress signals or calls to help for international rescue. The other machines and vehicles that appear on the show are also damn impressive, with their own themes and unique designs giving them each a personality of their own. They're also designed to look like they're actual machines that have been used in the world, spewing out black exhaust fumes and just being completely filthy. The same kind of approach George Lucas took when he was making A New Hope. Just making all the machines filthy makes them feel like they're real and not just some fake space toys. And half the time when they're on screen, it feels like you're watching a Rube Goldberg machine coming together. But somehow you don't mind, because just seeing it in motion is enough to satisfy and keep you in awe at the size of these lads. Lend me your brains for a moment and just imagine this for me. You're standing at the mouth of a jungle, waiting to see this new machine the army has created. As you wait, you hear a commotion. Birds fly out of the trees. Zebras and elephants at the waterhole close by are startled and run away. Even the lions have fled. You look back into the jungle and hear a heavy footstep. Then another and another. The splintering of wood can be heard as trees start to fall. You see a massive shape looming through the trees, 7 stories high, almost as tall as the canopy above it. A large metal claw grabs a tree close to you and pulls it from the ground like a weed, roots and all. Tossing the tree aside, the hulking machine moves forwards and steps into the clearing. It's tall, it's long, and it looms over you like a metallic giant. This is the Sidewinder. And here's what it looks like. It looks stupid, but like all the other machines, it's introduced in such a way that makes it feel so much more impressive and like a character in and of itself. It's the same kind of joy you got as a kid taking your toys outside and playing in the dirt with them, but you didn't care because the dirt made them look cooler and more real.
All our gasoline and water is in that trailer. We gotta get it.
None of the above would be at all relevant if, of course, there wasn't a good story to go along with it. Most episodes of the show either consist of 1 to 4 people in need of rescue from some sort of precarious situation, international rescue getting to the bottom of some international espionage, or foiling the schemes of the villainous Hood. Such stories include Trapped in the Sky, City of Fire, alias Mr. Hackenbacker, and the poorly titled Terror in New York City. These situations can vary from a collapsing radio tower to literally just 3 people trapped under a burning skyscraper the size of a city. Yeah, sometimes suspension of disbelief can only grant you so much. Still, the show never went too far with the dangers the characters were in, and it manages to keep you on the edge of your seat down to the last minute. And about 80% of the time, it was paid off with a satisfying explosion. Numerous times, the Thunderbirds aren't shown to be indestructible, from one of the elevator cars spinning out in the first episode to the time when Thunderbird 2 was gunned down by the US Navy. Even though the action is mostly had by puppets, you're still invested in it. People got hurt and stakes were made clear. A big contribution to this is the music. It's so over the top, yet it adds to the scene perfectly. If the example I gave earlier with the sidewinder didn't convince you, then I'm going to leave a link to a few examples down in the description. Look up the soundtrack and listen to it. Trust me, it's worth it. There are many other things I could touch on, but the video is long enough as it is. From a modern standpoint, it hasn't aged quite as well as, say, the Clangers or the Magic Roundabout. Most of this can be attributed to the fact that it was aimed at both kids and adults, which means jokes that adults would find funny. This manifested in the forms of some good old-fashioned sexism with women can't drive jokes and a light dash of 60s British racism. It's more offensive accents than it is straight racism, but it still shows its age. As I said, the show was a massive hit, and it still is highly regarded among the British public, but all good things do come to an end. The film Thunderbirds Are Go was released a year after the show first debuted, and unfortunately flopped critically and at the box office. While the film is a marvel and a technical achievement, it focused more on Alan Tracy instead of the team as a whole, which led to audiences being uninterested in the plot. There's a few fan re-edits of the film on YouTube that cuts out some of the more tedious stuff, so the film can play out more like an average episode. The show was then cancelled midway through the second season, as the producer couldn't find an American TV station that was willing to air it, despite it being wildly popular in the UK and other countries it was broadcast in. The producer felt that without the backing of an American TV station, the company wouldn't make back the money spent on the second season, so the rest was scrapped. Anderson went on to make two more shows, the more serious and thrilling Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, and the more kid-friendly Joe 90. Both failed to match Thunderbirds' broad appeal, and as a result were the last two Marionation shows Anderson produced. After another failed Thunderbirds movie in 1968, the series was pretty much over, but not forgotten. Years later, in 1982, a Japanese animated show called Scientific Rescue Team Techno Voyager was created, heavily inspired by Thunderbirds. Instead of the titular 5 Thunderbirds, there were 17, and instead of the Tracy family, it was operated by some United Nations type group of people. Anderson's company got the rights to produce the English dub for the show, so it was rebranded as Thunderbirds 2086 in English. Later in 1992, Fox finally purchased the footage for 13 of the original Thunderbirds episodes, filming additional live action scenes and stitching it all together into this.
Thunderbirds are go, go, go!
Jesus Christ, I think I'm going to have a heart attack.
In recent years, the show has been rebooted to fit with a modern audience, and has done quite well, lasting for 3 seasons as opposed to the original's 1.5. 3 episodes were made in 2015 in the style of the original show, using audio from 3 audio-exclusive stories, as well as puppets, sets and backgrounds, all made to look exactly like the 60s version. In summary, Thunderbirds is one of those things that's just more than the sum of its parts. It feels like being a kid again and playing with your toys, imagining all these fun stories and getting to watch things actually blow up. I fell in love with it as a kid because I used to watch a VHS tape with a few episodes on it at my grandparents' house, and I'd sit and watch, infatuated with these massive machines saving the day. Goodest Boy Award can go to Parker, Penelope's driver/butler. I never got the chance to talk in depth about the characters, but trust me when I say that Parker is an absolute lad. The lesson I want you to take from this is give Thunderbirds a watch. It's dated in a few things, sure, but that's outshined by pretty much everything else the series does. Trust me, you won't regret it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go international rescue my spotted dick.
Come on. Come on.
Alright, there was a live action version.